All right, so I've learned very quickly in this game that it's important to choose your words carefully. So I have a prepared statement that I'm going to use to read. There are copies of this afterwards if you'd like an exact copy. And then afterwards we'll have just a brief time for some questions. I just want to say thank you all for coming. This was announced only a short 12 hours ago, so I appreciate the attendance. 2 weeks ago, I posted a meme on Facebook warning that entitlement programs like food stamps can lead to dependency. Almost immediately, I was targeted by the national media in a dishonest and word-twisting onslaught that tried to make it appear that I was attacking the poor when I was obviously criticizing the government welfare establishment that keeps people poor. The culmination of these smears was Representative Jim McGovern of Massachusetts going on the floor of the House of Representatives and suggesting that I owe an apology to the hungry. It's been a lesson for me about what happens to someone who criticizes the establishment in the age of Obama. For the liberal attack machine wasn't enough to say we don't agree on how big the social safety net should be or its unforeseen consequences. They had to savage me as a lesson to anyone who dares speak up on the Obama administration of their out-of-control food stamp frenzy. It's censorship by intimidation. And I invite you just to watch this.
We're now at a point where it's apparently okay for political candidates to denigrate our fellow citizens by comparing them to animals. Dr. Annette Bosworth shared a viral image on her Facebook page that said the following, and I quote, "The food stamp program is administered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They proudly report that they distribute free meals and food stamps to over 46 million people on an annual basis. Meanwhile, the National Park Service, run by the U.S. Department of Interior, asks us, please do not feed the animals. Their stated reason for this policy being that the animals will grow dependent on the handouts and then they will never learn to take care of themselves." The post continues, "This concludes today's lesson. Any questions?" End quote. What an incredibly offensive thing for anybody to say.
I have a message for those critics this morning. If you thought your attacks could silence me, you don't know the Dr. Annette Bosworth. I'm the Obama administration's worst nightmare. An independent, educated, accomplished Christian conservative woman who won't be bullied into silence. And this morning I'm going to announce something that the petty dictators of dependency will never do. A way to try and solve the problem of hunger in America. I'm here to tell Representative McGovern and his media mob the truth. When it comes to poverty and hunger, conservatives aren't the ones who need to apologize. No, it is the Democrats and the liberal policymakers and the catty cheerleaders in the media who need to apologize. They are the ones who intentionally created a system that traps many of our nation's poor in a vicious cycle of poverty and dependence that lasts generations. Everyone knows the old saying, give a man a fish, feed him for an hour. But teach a man to fish, and you'll feed him for a lifetime. But power-hungry liberal Democrats do their darndest to ignore the simple truths. Here's the dirty secret of the sanctimonious politicians like Representative McGovern, who don't actually want to solve problems. They want to keep the poor hooked on their solution that keeps getting elections again and again. It is always a bigger and more intrusive government. Why all the pressure to shut me up about an issue such as food stamps? Maybe it's the startling growth of food stamp program during the Obama administration, during his reign of power. As the Congressional Budget Office has written, the number of people getting SNAP, or the newer name for food stamps, has risen sharply in recent years. From 26 million people in 2007 to 46 million people in 2012. And the translation in spending for that program has grown significantly. It's more than doubled, from 35 billion in 2007 to 80 billion in 2012. Hunger is, of course, a real problem. I know this both personally and professionally. In the struggles my family has faced in the last few years, I know what it's like to worry about where the next meal is coming from. And as a doctor, I've seen the results of the political solutions to hunger, where people who are simultaneously malnourished and obese. It happens here in South Dakota and across our country. My political training has ingrained in me that it's not enough to just diagnose a problem. You have to actually work towards a cure. And rule number 1 is first do no harm. The unintended consequences of this program are real. It's exactly the problem with the SNAP program. It has side effects. For many, it's become just a Band-Aid. It doesn't actually solve the underlying problem of why they needed those food stamps in the first place. And it traps the people in a cycle of poverty. But if hunger is the problem, liberals like Obama and McGovern act as if the government is the only solution. The proper role of government should be to get out of the way of innovators and effective charities. Here in South Dakota, Mike Brown's EB5 scandal has shown what happens when a state tries to pick the winners and losers instead of letting performance be the answer. No, the real long-term solution for hunger isn't government dependence. Hunger stops being an issue when people are truly independent. And that's why today I'm launching a new website called helphealhunger.org. The initial goal of the site is simple. I'm inviting people to submit their ideas to actually solve hunger problems with solutions that create independence, that get us talking amongst one another about what the solutions are, where those opportunities are, and how we can connect them together. My Senate campaign is based on the uniquely American idea that we, the people, are wiser than the politicians like Representative McGovern. Politicians can't seem to come up with ideas to solve problems, but I believe we can. I'm not just asking for ideas from one side of the political spectrum. Solving problems shouldn't be partisan. I'm inviting everyone, Republicans, Democrats, or independents, to go to helphealhunger.org and submit your idea using the simple form that's online. We're going to listen to your ideas about solving hunger, about creating independence. We'll share some of the most interesting ones on my Facebook page and as we get feedback. Then, as we find and combine great ideas, we'll begin to implement them as quickly as possible. We're not going to wait for permission from the politicians or build a new bureaucracy. No, we're going to roll up our sleeves and take action. So in closing, I want to thank my critics in the media and even politicians like Jim McGovern. Your dishonest and ineffectiveness has gotten me so disgusted with the way things are in politics right now that it made me want to start now. Not when you get elected, but start now with finding ideas and empowering the people in my community and in my country to solve problems using their skills right in front of them and the needs being met right in front of them. I urge everyone to visit helphealhunger.org and submit your ideas. Thank you. All right. Any questions? Stunned.
Are you, I mean, you've criticized the existing solution out there right now, food stamps. You're asking for suggestions from the general populace. Do you have any ideas of your own that you'll be submitting, or sort of to prime the pump that you can share with us now? Or?
Absolutely. I think there are, the solutions that I see, though, are through my lens, where I'm behind an exam room door. I'm in a community where the needs are much different than they would be in even 100 miles from here in South Dakota. That I do think that's the beauty of the 21st century, excuse me, is that we can use our ability to communicate as a crowdsourcing way to solve problems. It doesn't have to be my idea. And I think that's the arrogance of today in many leaders who say, it must come from me to be a good solution. That I have lots of great ideas that I know better than to think they're the only ideas. And to blend what I see as a physician, as a mom, as a small business owner, as a woman who does lend my skills and talents and needs to charities. I have a unique perspective, but it's not the only perspective. And sharing those ideas will be part of this process, absolutely.
Do you have anything to share here today, or?
One of my favorites that I've heard is watching what happens when you use a stewardship for people that are in a program such as food stamps, so that we can say, are they improving themselves? I've heard other ideas about having a community garden and saying the food stamps is coupled to service time in a community garden where they can learn more about the healthy forms of food. And knowing that skill set can not only enrich them in their community, but also teach them things they might not know. South Dakota, we have gardens every few feet, but the rest of the country doesn't have such things.
How long have you been working on this?
The website is, I think the attack started, are we at a week yet? And, but the idea has been brewing about, just like when I have a problem in medicine, and I want to know how do other physicians in this situation solve it. I don't pretend that all the ideas will come from me. There are group think tanks that we say, how would you process through a story like this? How would you solve the needs of someone like this? What are the resources you know about this? And so using that platform that should be in our Congress, we should be helping them think about the answers. And the fact that it's decoupled at such a distant place, that is such a one-sided communication. They speak to us, but our way to speak to them is, what, through riots or through protests? Is that our only voice? There has to be better solutions. And so let's start with one.
Was there any surprise when your name was brought up in Congress last week?
Surprise is a masterpiece of understatement. I mean, I can't help but see myself as, a small town girl from Plankington. There was 21 in my graduating class. When any one of the people in our whole school made a newspaper, we talked about it for a week, let alone making the name on the floor of our nation's Congress. I mean, it's scary. It really is scary. I have fear every day that I say, will I have failure of nerve to do this? It is. It's very, to think about how great the voice is that I've been given. It comes with a lot of stewardship and reflection to be very mindful about what I do with it. Because 21 kids is what I grew up with. And I had to look each one of them in the eye. I had to live with them every day. And if your family didn't live in the rules of the community and be honorable, you lived in shame. So knowing that this is a very important role, and seeing your name make it all the way to the floor of the Congress was humbling, was honoring, but was also very scary.
You talked about the SNAP program being on the rise, but I thought they just cut back the SNAP program. And what do you see as the future of it? Do you want to see it cut further, or?
I think there are solutions there that don't just, there's a couple of great YouTube things I would ask you to go search out. One of them is from a couple of months ago about just some examples of human behavior. And I think that's more what this program looks at is, if the goal is to satisfy hunger, but this program better predicts obesity than it does hunger. We have a problem. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's solve the problem. And that is, how do we get them dependent? How do we get them off of it? May we better measure this program by not how much we cut, but by how much it's not needed, because it was incentivized to graduate from it.
Would you push for a modification, taking sodas like Coca-Cola and Pepsi products off the list of acceptable items, as well as Red Bull?
Well, there are some unbelievable stories that I hear from patients, and not because we did this to them. We created a program where the rules kept getting more and more generous and not helping to focus on how can we give them healthy food. It's not their fault. We did this. And to guide them in a way that says, measure the fiber. I'm a doctor. That's what I'm going to think of first, is measure the fiber in the food. And that should be one of the benchmarks. But that's, again, that's my idea, and it comes from a filter that is going to be biased in the world of medicine.
Have you been able to generate any political support for this yet? Or?
I just launched it, so we'll see. I just think there are, it is my generation to say, reach out without keeping score and say who and where can this idea land? How can we attract people into solving it together? Don't look at your label. For heaven's sakes, don't look at your political label. Do you have an idea that really would improve our community? Which is what all political leaders should be focused on. Instead of getting reelected, and did my policy create the votes, or did it actually help the people?
Would you push for drug testing for social services programs?
It isn't an accident that one of my fortes is addiction, and that I can see trends that happen, that subsidies come into the lives of people, and I can tell some very specific stories of a mother who is a wonderful mother, and she's working 2 jobs, making life meet. It's hard. Nobody was going to say it wasn't without a struggle, but she was making it. And then she was granted subsidies for her housing, and that was a little easier, so then she didn't have to work that second job and was spending a little more time with her kids. And then came the subsidies for more food, and then came the subsidies for Medicaid. And about 2 years later, her arrival into my clinic was because she was now migrated into a place of using drugs instead of really focused on how can I better the lives for my kids. And again, it's not her fault. She's a good woman. But there's a process there. It's not the first time that happens. I hear that story again and again. And does it mean drug testing is the right thing to do? I would love to have that discussion. I think there are more answers in graduating people than there are scolding and shaming them for being trapped in some of the policies that we have made for them, that we have elected for them.
The story you just told, it seems to suggest that these social programs can lead or encourage people into drug dependency. Is that what you were saying?
No, I don't say that. I say that there is a mode of behavior that one has accountability for. Where are the resources of your month going to come from, and what are the actions you're doing to ensure that? And although I fill out the paperwork for folks to get this when they need it and help them through a chapter where they need it, I am a Christian, and I am very committed to helping people. But then I also get to stay present in their stories as the next chapter comes, and the next chapter comes, and the next chapter comes. And it's not once that you see that story where you make a conclusion or you see a pattern. It's multiple.
At this time, can you address any allegations about employee pay?
When you're the boss, you get to decide who comes onto your team. And there are performance measures that are met on my team. And as you create a team that is serving to meet the needs of others, there is no question on my team that if you don't meet certain requirements, if you don't hold your own responsibility, everybody on my team knows that they get food and money before I do. They get paid first. And when you're not holding up your responsibilities on the team, there is a trend that says they won't stay long. I am all about giving people the jobs, especially the ones that need it, and especially having forgiveness for people every day. As they walk into my clinic, the prayer I begin with every day is, God, help me have the forgiveness. Restore my forgiveness every day. And I do that with my patients, my employees, and my friends. And I will still pray for those people.
So are you saying that the people who were complaining that they weren't paid their wages didn't get paid that because they weren't doing their jobs?
There were performance measures that on my team need to be met. And when they're not, that culture that we create in our team, that it's our responsibility, that everyone on my team has had sacrifices, that the FEC report, $18,000 is my pay. Everybody on my team gets fed and paid first. That's what leaders do. That's enough questions. Anything else?
The Attorney General is looking into allegations that you circulated petitions, or signed for petitions that have been gathered while you were out of the country in the Philippines.
And we've put out a statement.
But the statement didn't address the substance of the allegations. Do you have any comment on, were you?
The statement has been put out. Thank you, David. All right. Anything else?
Now, this is quite a bold undertaking.
I thank you. I think that's what leaders are supposed to do. All right. Thank you very much. You can scroll around on the app. Oh, don't want to.
Nope, you're just attached.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that, you're fine.
Yeah.
Is there any reason that?
Yes, I have a printed statement. Is that what you wanted?
Yes.
It's not on letterhead, so I'm